Hey there, welcome to Cracking the Rich Code, the podcast. I'm your host, John Verico, and I'm going to say this again. I have a very special guest today. But what makes today even more special is that this happens to be Friday the 13th that we are recording this on. And my guest is in volume 13, and so am I in volume 13. So let's just kind of bring this all together and let me bring on my very special guest, Cecelia Fee Mazanko. Come on in, Cecelia, or otherly known as Fee. Hi there.
Hi, John. Great to be with you today, and happy Friday the 13th. And
I'm
it's a
loving it.
lucky day for both of us.
It is a lucky day. It was a lucky, I mean, we're both in volume 13 of Cracking the Rich Code.
That's it, right? I love it. Love it.
So we're going to start things off really, really easily right here. Where did the nickname Fee come from?
Well, it's such a great story because, John, I'm the youngest of 7 children and grew up on the south side of Chicago. And the last 2 of us, my sister Kay and I, her real name's Catherine, I think my parents were so tired. They had 7 children in 10 years, and they were so tired that their creative minds couldn't even fathom how to name the last 2 of us. So my sister Kay is named after my grandmother, who's Catherine, and I was named after my mom's mom, Cecelia. But they said, hey, we can't call her Cecelia because we need a nickname for her. So when I was born, they put me on the floor. They gathered around, all the siblings and my parents gathered around, and they said, okay, what are we going to call her? And my dad came up with Fee. He said originally it was Fee, but it got shut down to Fee. And he said because I looked like a little French girl when I was born. So that is how Fee came about, and it stuck ever since. So the interesting
I was wondering how it derived from Cecelia. Like normally you may get a Cece out of that, but no. So you
that's
look like a
normal,
little.
John.
So
That's
you're
normal.
supposed
We're
to
not
be
talking,
Fifi.
yeah, we're not talking a normal family experience at all. We're talking we were kind of out there. But the interesting thing about the nickname is that Fee, my husband's family's from Germany, and so Fee in German means fairy, and in Celtic it means spiritual intuitive. So I think all of the connectedness, even though my dad may have not known when I was first born what I was going to be doing and how I was going to be operating in the world, I believe that everybody has a little knowingness within themselves that allows us to really know and understand kind of the energy that we hold and carry. So those are things, intuition is something that I really carry with me often in my work and just in my day-to-day life. And my favorite subject to talk about is one's own spirituality, connection to love, not religion, but their connection to love. And that's what I bring forth in the work that I do in the world.
And and we kind of manifest what we feel and who we are that way. Especially, I mean, so here you were Fee,
Mhm.
and you have manifested kind of what that is all centered on, which is love.
It really is. And that is kind of the work that I focus on with people, and how I work with people is that I want people to know and understand, John, that when we are in a fear-based state, that fear blocks us from being our full potential here.
Right.
And I actually have designed a process over all these years of coaching people. I've been coaching people for 26 years. And over all these years of coaching people, I designed a process. I found kind of the structure of how to move people from fear to what they would love through what I call the emotional discovery process. because clients come in and they tell me, hey, Fee, I'm experiencing this with a coworker or a neighbor or a friend or even a loved one, a family member. It doesn't matter where it comes from. And what I discovered in working with all these clients over the years is the system or formula to be able to support a client in their ability to tap into their body's wisdom, to
Mhm.
find where the fear is located within their bodies. We pull the fear out like pulling a weed by the roots within their bodies. And then what happens is through a process of forgiveness and then a process of anchoring a vision of what they would love, we're able to really return a person to their natural state. And so, what results from that experience, John, is that when a person moves from fear, their not natural state, to love, which is their natural state, and they hold a vision inside their bodies, their nervous system sends out a signal when they are holding that love within their parasympathetic nervous system. So that signal gets called out and things start to line up for them. It appears out of the blue, but it really isn't out of the blue. It actually lines up for them to be able to attain results. And they can be financial results. I mean, I've got people that are, you know, executives that earn tremendous incomes. But more importantly, the power that they feel within themselves is really what I get a chance to witness on a daily basis when I work with clients and people out in the world. I did it this morning with a Pilates instructor. She said, Fee, you're a coach. Tell me, you know, I'm having two voices in my head. I have the voice that says, I want this car, and the voice that says, yeah, but you should be satisfied with this car. And I said, well, what does your body feel like when you imagine yourself in the car? And she's like, I feel complete. I feel great. So I said, so it feels really expansive. And she said, yes. And I said, so what do you think is happening there? And she's like, I know what I'm supposed to do now. So I said to her, let's go out on a ride when you get this car, right? Let's go around town and drive around. So yeah. So it's fun for me. It's really fun for me to just be able to, and that happened in about 2 minutes right before our Pilates class started. So yeah.
Isn't it amazing when we have the opportunity to help somebody just accomplish that or to manifest something? And that's I think what draws people into the coaching field. We don't do this for the money. And I've said this many times in the past, right? I would do it for free because I know I'm helping people and that's my true reward. But I have become accustomed to those minor luxuries of food and shelter, so I do have to charge. But
Yeah.
but truly, I think, when we decide to go into this field, it's because we have a true desire to help people, and it's because we come from a foundation of love.
Well, John, I believe that coaching, for me anyway, coaching opened the doorway to my life's passion, my work in the world, and how I feel like I can contribute my gifts and talents here. And I was in a corporate role for 12 years before.
I was just going to ask you how you evolved to this point.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, I was a sales promotion manager, very much in a sales support role in the corporate world for a marketing company way back when. I started right out of college when I was 22 years old. But the gift that I had, John, in that role was I got a chance to work side by side with a really great mentor and boss. And he just kind of showed me the ropes, and he challenged me like no one ever challenged me before, because he was someone who said, because I used to negotiate hotels, we would run conferences and events for
Mhm.
1,500 people at a time. And he would say, okay, Fee, I want you to go and I want you to ask for a free breakfast for the 1,500 people that you're going to be working with. And I'd be like, I'm 23, 24 years old. And I'd go, really? You want me to ask for that? And I would say, and he said, yeah, I want you to ask for that, you know? So like I did. And the guy said, okay, we're not going to do a full breakfast. We'll do a continental for 1,500. Okay, great. Thank you. You know, so he challenged me at every level when I was really early on. And the really great thing that happened is, and I always tell people, if there is a calling of your heart, you're going to know it, and it's not going to ever stop. And after 12 years of doing the work, it wasn't even 12 years. It was probably about 10 years of doing the work. I started feeling this pull and this, like, there's something more. There's
Right.
something more. But I never knew, John, what that something more was. I really didn't, I couldn't really fathom it. I had two really young children at the time. My husband was just starting out. He was just starting out his financial planning business. And so we were really relying on my income as the stable force, right? But I kept feeling this tug, and it got louder and louder and louder. And finally I just surrendered and I said, okay, just show me the way, like show me where to go, what to do. I don't even know what I'm meant to do. And what ended up happening is the company restructured, and I had a meeting with my boss and a person that was coming in, that was going to be in a role that I was kind of doing, but I didn't have the title and I certainly didn't get paid for it. And so
Mm.
we had this meeting, and I was in such a partnership with my boss. We made all decisions together, and that gave me a really great exposure to, you know, having successful business and what that looked like and what that meant, because he would talk to me and say, okay, what do you think about this? Or I brought some ideas to him. I said, when we had challenges, I said, why don't we split Chicago in two and put one person here and one person here? And that's what we ended up doing, and it ended up being very successful. So like I got exposure to all these things early on in my career. And
And you were fortunate and have to have that relationship with your boss. And I think, you know, many of us can point to people who influence us, whether in that way or the opposite way. You know, when you have a, you know, like a mean or micromanaging boss, you know, you can use that as an example of things not to do. And you know what things worked for you. And I can look back on my career, and there were people, you know, who wanted to hear my opinion, who believed that I had an opinion or a suggestion that was of value. And when we feel valued, that's how we grow. You know, and I think that's what happened with you. I can actually see it. I can see the light in your face as you're retelling the story of how this boss made you feel when he asked your opinion for things, when he let you try things that maybe were outside of your comfort zone, knowing that it was for you a growth opportunity. And it's so great when you have that opportunity to happen.
yeah, definitely. And but that there was a lunch meeting at a TGI Fridays on a really hot July afternoon. And I will never forget it, because he said, my boss, and we were meeting with this other gentleman that was now in the new restructure. And he said, Fee, just make a note of that, and Tim and I will discuss this. And I said, wow, I felt like, okay, this partnership that I had for 12 years really is now completely changed. And that was the wake up call for me that said that there was something more.
Yeah.
And John, what I did is something that I never recommend anybody to do. What I did was I quit first without having anything to fall back on. But that
Kind of do as I say, not as I do, huh?
exactly. That opening created the space, because 2 weeks after I quit, which I didn't, my boss had me stay on for 5 months to train the incoming person. But the 2 weeks later, and this is where a lot of faith and a lot of trust comes in, because I had said, you know, please, I asked for guidance, like, please guide me into whatever is next for me. And that's what I recommend to people always, is like, whatever your heart is telling you, ask for the help, because you will get it. You will feel that love, and you will feel that support, from the unseen, from the, from, you'll just get nudges all along the way. And so, I the opportunity for becoming certified as a coach, because I was getting coached by a coach way back before anybody knew what coaching was. I was getting coached to really create balance in my life, because I was this sales promotion manager, having two really young children and trying to balance it all. And so I received coaching first, and she said, "Fee, there is an opportunity for you to get certified." I got certified. I brought coaching into the company that I worked in at that time.
Oh, nice.
And my boss kept me on experimentally at first, because again, coaching way back then,
Yeah.
it was not really heard of. And so I did we were so successful that I went national after that. I stayed on for another year and a half, and then I decided to move out on my own and just continue, to diversify my client base, and work. I worked part-time at it while my children were little, so that I could feel the balance, but also feel the contribution at the same time.
Nice,
Mhm.
nice. Hey, we are speaking with Cecelia Fee Mazanke, and she is an executive coach. And she asked the question, what would you love to her coaching clients? And we're going to be talking more about that. But first, I want to just point out the fact that Fee and I are in volume 13 of Cracking the Rich Code, and here's my copy right here as well. Look at that. And we're recording this on Friday the 13th, which is a lovely kind of confluence of stuff. But I wanted to ask a little bit about your chapter that you wrote. First of all, when Jim Britt first reached out and asked you about being, I assume that's how you got into this. When he asked you about being part of the Cracking the Rich Code book series, what was your initial reaction?
Well, initially I thought, really me, like, why me, right? What am I going to write about? What's here for me? It was very intriguing. I felt a draw. Jim and I had a couple of conversations about it. And, the more I talked to Jim, the more I felt connected to him, and felt connected to what he was doing as a part of this book project. And
Yeah. That's an
um,
important point too, isn't it? Because we have to. I really am a firm believer that we only really do business with people that we connect with, right? We do business with people, not with businesses. And yeah, I think it's that human to human connection that makes us make these decisions, especially when we're delving into something maybe we haven't done before, or we want to try to take a chance on something new.
Sure. And it was a feeling, John, and I know you know it, and you're such a great contributor of our mastermind calls that we have once a month. And because the people that we gather as fellow authors, the people that are selected to gather on these mastermind calls with Jim, there's just a great sense of connection and community among all of us. And I, being the youngest of seven, a lot, like, I just love to sit back and observe. I feel like part of who I am is great at observing. And I love to watch the interactions, especially with you and David and other people that are, in the group, where it's just fascinating to me, for me to be able to, like, watch how everybody kind of just wants to lovingly support one another. And I would attribute that to Jim, and who he is as a person, as a human, and how he operates, because that all stems from him, obviously. So I'm
Yeah.
really grateful. I'm so grateful that I got a chance to be part of this project, and to be among you and all the other authors each and every month. And I think there's way even greater opportunities for us to join together and really serve and unite in a very wonderful, loving way.
It really is truly, it's all about community. It really is.
Mhm.
And we have a remarkable community. I was fortunate enough when Jim first reached out to me and he said, I'd like to invite you to participate in cracking the rich code. And I just was like, wait a minute, I'm not one of these money guys. And, as we chatted more, we talked about richness in life. And that was back in volume 10.
Mm.
So I was in volume 10 with Pete Beskis, who was the original host of this podcast. So, how things all come around. And then ultimately we're in two others. And when I did Cracking the Rich Code 13, it was like, okay, what am I going to write about this time? And so, we think about different things that we have to share with the world. And it's hard sometimes to figure out which message it is we're going to share. And so you chose to write about or to kind of use as an initial kickoff point a story about a shoe shine man that you had met. And so, could you share just a little bit about how you came to the story that you chose to share in this book?
Well, this man had such an impact on me at a conference, at an event that I was at in 1996. It was the company that I worked for had an event in Arizona at a very high end hotel, and it was their annual leadership event. And this man, I'm a very early riser, like extremely early, and so especially being 2 hours ahead of Arizona, I I saw this man as I came down the elevator. He was a shoe shine man, and he greeted me each morning because I would wake up so early. I would go downstairs and, journal or read or do something to get out of the room that I was in. And he greeted me each morning with such enthusiasm and love that it was so impactful that I'm writing about him in my chapter and talking about this man. And he was a shoe shine man. We certainly know he wasn't making hundreds of thousands of dollars back in the day. And I'm sure he got a lot of great tips just because of his energy, his vitality, and his enthusiasm for life. And he would greet me, he would say, "Good morning, young lady, how are you today?" And just had this really very beautiful way of connecting to people. And I was so impacted by that the chapter that I chose to write on was really about how we can experience richness in life's experiences, in a joyful way of showing up, in really connecting deeply with people. Yes.
Fee, I just want to point out because there are some people out there that are of a younger generation who maybe who maybe are following you on LinkedIn or following this podcast, and I wonder how many of them know what a shoe shine person is because you don't see that anymore.
Yeah, that's really true.
So this was somebody who literally would be there to shine your shoes. This is when people actually wore more shoes than sneakers and kicks, and so we have these nice business shoes and stuff, and they were we wanted them to be clean and shiny because people would look at us and judge us if our shoes were dirty and stuff. And so this person would be there to shine your shoes for you. And most of the time it was for a tip. And sometimes it was only for tips. And in some places they would have a small fee for it. But so here's this guy who's shining people's shoes for a living. And the way you describe him in your story is, he's singing and he's cheerful and he's happy all the time and greeting people, with joy and openness and welcome and love. And talk more about now the impact that made on you. Um, but it's so true. When we see people and encounter people who are enjoying their life, we want to be like them. We want to be able to let go of all of the drama and trauma in our lives and to emulate and to feel that kind of joy. And this is your story is so enlightening in the fact that it points out that you don't have to be, at the top end of the wealth of the financial wealth spectrum in order to be happy.
Well, John, doing this work in coaching, and it really starts with really growing ourselves first, and then that growth within ourselves really filters out to our clients. But the more joyful we are, the more we can wake up on a daily basis and just feel grateful for the day and
Yeah.
what blessings and what can I offer to people today. I mean, these are things that I ask myself. I am here to be a catalyst for love for people, and it doesn't just mean in a coaching connection. I want it to be in the grocery store, just like this my shoe shine
Yes.
man, who was such a gift to me almost 30 years ago. I mean, that's how impactful it was. And I thought to myself, if he could be that happy shining people's shoes. It was a very luxury hotel that we were in, so I'm sure he kept himself very busy based on shining shoes. I'm sure you, John, in the Navy growing up, you probably
Oh yeah.
nice and shiny shoes.
Those shoes had to be shiny.
That was a requirement for you. It probably wasn't as joyful as my shoe. You shining them in the morning wasn't as joyful as my shoe shine man. But you get the point. Is that joy and enthusiasm are riches in our world that I believe that these are riches that we can gift on a daily basis, on a moment to moment basis.
Yeah.
If we really slow down enough to understand that that's what we're here for. And I know this, John, because you're coaching, and you had this lengthy career in the Navy, and then you go out into the private sector to become a coach. But all of the lessons that you learned and carried from all those experiences are here now. And what would you say was probably your greatest takeaway, John, from your experience, from your lengthy career experience, and how did that bridge the gap for you as a coach?
Well, I have to tell you, really the things that resonated with me over the years and the different bosses that I worked with and the different leadership styles that I encountered and all of that, the aha moments were when people trusted me to do my job and they empowered me to take chances and risks. And that in and of itself was those are the behaviors that I wanted to emulate. I wanted to be able to make people feel as if they mattered and that they make a difference. And so I have adopted those feelings throughout the rest of my life. And just because somebody is a shoe shine man or a garbage person, a garbage collector, whatever it is, does not mean that they are not worthy of your time, your effort, and your smile and your handshake, and your gratitude. And so everyone, I think that the smile is the best gift that we have to offer the world. And I think that we need to learn to share our smile, our love, and our compassion more than anything else. And that's the gift that we have to share with the world. And we can work together. We can do so much more together than we can when we're divided and apart. And so I can probably pick out a bunch of different aha moments throughout my life and career, but if I were to consolidate them into a blurb, that would really be it. And oh my goodness, we're almost out of our time already. We're having this delightful conversation with Fee Mazanke, who is an executive coach. And you can find out more about her at directconnectcoaching.co. That's not .com, it's .co, Direct Connect Coaching. and make sure I mention that online and for people who are just listening to the audio. And you want to pick up Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 13, because not only will you get my chapter, but you'll also get, more importantly, Fee's chapter, which is entitled The World's Richest Shoeshine Man. This has been a great conversation, Fee. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, John. What a pleasure it is to connect with you, in this format and each and every month when we get together on our mastermind calls. I really appreciate it. And I do feel like what we have to offer as a community in Cracking the Rich Code authors is really to truly mastermind how we as a community can bring greater love and greater connection and greater union to the world. And it can just start with all of us here. So I believe truly in my heart of hearts that that's what it's the next evolution of what we have available to us here. So thank
Absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Fee. This was a truly enjoyable conversation. And I know that we'll probably wind up doing some things together moving forward. So let's continue to stay in touch. And everyone, please pick up that copy of Volume 13 of Cracking the Rich Code and check out information about how to get in touch with Cecelia Fee Mazanke. Thanks again for your time. This has been a great show. Thanks.
Thanks, John. I